This is a blank that I purchased at one of the pin shows from Andrew Amtower, and we're going to turn it into a seam ripper today. Just thought we'd take a quick peek at the blank. It's looking pretty good. I still got a little bit of work there to do. Not too bad though. Overall, it's looking really nice. Well, you can see I've got a basic shape. I've got kind of a little place down here where you can hold the seam ripper, you get behind it, and the same thing down here. This one is a little larger than that one. Generally, when I do seam rippers, one end is larger than the other. But what I do is the seam ripper comes with a large ripper and a small ripper. So I put the large one in this end, the small one in this end, and then when I give it to the person I give it to, I tell them this is how you know. I mean, you can look at it instantly and say that's the larger ripper, that's the smaller ripper. A little bit of roughness because I had trouble getting down into those grooves, but I think what I'm going to do is I'll use a little sandpaper and take the tool. The tool marks are only right here and right here, and I'll use a little bit of sandpaper real quick. I'll take those out, and I should be able to polish this up, and I think it's going to look really, really nice. I've slowed the lathe down, and I went ahead and put my cardboard under it because I'm going to wet my sandpaper. That way I don't have to have my dust collector in the way, and it makes it a little easier sometimes to see what you're doing. Also keeps the heat down. We're just going to sand, and this is a piece of 240 grit sandpaper. I decided to start with 240 instead of getting too crazy. I got a nice fit at the bushings on both ends. I'm really happy with that. We just want to work that little concave area there. looking pretty good. The tool marks are disappearing. I'm going to get a fresh piece of 220 and see the scratches, they're starting to show up, the centrifugal scratches. We're going to go back and forth like this to take the deep ones out. And then I'm going to jump up to the 320 or 340, whatever the next grid is. And we'll continue sanding down through 400. Come back here in a minute, show you what it looks like right before we go to micro mesh. You can take a look at the blank. You still see some scratches in it. Micro mesh should clean those up. I've gotten rid of the tool marks there and there. I'm happy about that. So we're just we'll work the first couple of pads. Since this is acrylic, we'll work the first 2 or 3 pads really, really hard. Build up a hard slurry. That should work the majority of those scratches out of there. And the rest of the pads will, just depending on how the blank looks, will determine how hard we work those pads. This is going to be a little bit of a lengthy process, so I'm not going to make you watch it. I'll go ahead and shut the camera off, come back and show it to you right after I get done micro meshing the blank. I'm just finishing up with the final micro mesh pad, and the blank is looking good. You can see it's looking really shiny. A little bit of that is the water, kind of gives it a shiny effect, but when we dry it off, it should maintain a majority of that shine, which is good, because when we wax it, it's going to look great. See, I'm wiping it off right now with a paper towel. Notice how it's staying shiny. Looks really nice. I'm just going to roll it over, and I'm watching the glare, looking for any scratches that I might have missed. So far, I'm not seeing any. I'm really happy with how this looks. I'm going to get some wax on this and buff it up, and yeah, I'm real happy with this. That looks awesome. Got a little Renaissance wax here, and we're just going to wax the blank from end to end. Waiting for it to start kind of drying a little bit. Blank feels good. I don't feel any tool marks or anything in it as I go from end to end. It feels pretty darn smooth. And also, since I splashed water everywhere, I'm going to put a little wax on my drive center and my live center because I don't want them to rust. I'll catch the points when I shut this thing off. And we're ready now. I'm going to go ahead and get it off the lathe, and we're going to get the buffing wheels on, and then we'll proceed to buff this seam ripper. I'm just rubbing the wax down onto the point of the live and the drive center. What I'll do is, before, I'll just let the wax sit on there to keep it from rusting. Whoops, you're out of the frame. There we go. I'm just going to let the wax sit on there to keep it from rusting because it got pretty wet. And then next time I put it on the lathe, I'll just wipe the dried wax off. The drive center I'm going to need real quick, so let me just grab a rag here. Actually, I need the live center. I don't know what I was thinking. The drive center comes out. So we'll just let this set, and that'll keep it from rusting. We'll put our buffing wheels in. Let me zoom you way out there so you can see everything. Okay, the buffing wheels are in. Just got an old rag here, and I'm going to wipe the live center off. That way it's not slippery, and then we'll go ahead and seat it in the buffing wheels. And now we're ready to buff our seam ripper. Take a look at that. I am looking at it for scratches, and I cannot see any. Looks amazing. Let's go ahead and get it assembled. Seam rippers are really very easy to assemble. You've got these little springs, and basically you kind of roll them up, and you stick the flat end in first like this, and feed it all the way back. Do the same thing for the other end. Just got to kind of roll it up a little bit. They're springy. Then we've got the pick end. Stick that end. And then there's your ripper. They've got a pick at this end where they can use that to pick the stitches out after they rip them. And you've got a ripper at this end where you can rip the stitches out when you're taking something apart. Really looks nice. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to reverse these, because while my ripper, after sanding, it came out relatively even, but I still think this end is a tiny bit larger, and generally that's a visual for someone to find the ripper, so they're not, pulling it out and say, oh wait, nope, that I don't want that one, I want the other one. So we're going to kind of go that route. That's my story. I absolutely love it. What a beautiful blank. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I had a great time turning the seam ripper. Turned out really nice. It's got a pick on this end for picking the stitches out after you rip them, and on this end it's got a good old seam ripper. It's a handy tool for anybody who sews, quilts, anything. I think it turned out beautiful. I love that blank. I'd like to thank you for joining me in the shop today. I want you to know that you are always welcome in my shop. Come back and see me again real soon, and have a great evening.